Hello Taurus, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. So this reading will be for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, and by all means, if you know your three major placements, feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one of them may resonate for you differently. And as always, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature, as they're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals, so not necessarily every detail will apply to you. Definitely take anything and everything that does resonate, however that makes sense for your specific situation or whatever that connects to in your personal circumstances. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and you can simply leave the rest. So Taurus, I hope you're doing well and that June was good to you. I'm excited to jump right into July and take a look at what might be coming up for you. So as always, before we get into your oracle and tarot cards, I am going to start off by sharing with you my channeled energetic impression and channeled messages, and then which I sat down to connect with before we got your cards out, and then we'll go from there. So Taurus, the vibe that I was kind of picking up on as I was preparing for your reading, it was interesting because the first word that came to mind was frantic. And it was kind of the sense of like maybe being prone to frantic energy. So if you're surrounded by frantic energy, if people around you are frantic, it's like being really prone to like kind of absorbing that, or perhaps you might be prone to having like, I don't want to say meltdowns. What's the word that I'm looking for? But yeah, I don't know, like moments where you kind of go off the rails a little bit, like something kind of triggers a frantic energy, and it can be difficult for you to balance that out and kind of like stay grounded. So yeah, the impression that I got is that you might be kind of either having to battle frantic energy, frantic thoughts, frantic actions, or learning how to battle and manage that and calm it. Because I do get the sense that you are very effective at like taking charge, taking action, putting in the work, getting things completed. And you know, whether that's from a place of like of creation or just kind of getting work done. But it's like you're very, very capable and you're easily able to impact the physical world around you and get stuff done. And I kind of feel like this frantic energy is like it's almost like your kryptonite. It's like one of the major things that really like gets your mind going, it gets your emotions going, and it kind of throws you so far off balance that it's really difficult for you to take action, let alone to take, you know, guided, focused, efficient action that's really going to pay off for you. So yeah, so this might be a theme for you this month, is like trying to kind of recognize when that frantic energy is coming up or what inspires kind of a frantic response, and figuring out how to manage that, so that you can kind of work on your focus. And I think it has a lot to do with your belief in yourself, and your ability to take action, to get results, to be successful. And so I think what happens if you do find yourself susceptible to like a frantic kind of energy, I almost think that it gets you in a place where you worry and you doubt your ability to complete things. And it's really that worry and those beliefs and the emotions that accompany with it, that's the only thing that really truly interferes with your ability to take action and to see results in the physical world. And so it could be like maybe you've hit some kind of roadblock or some kind of hang up, or in situations where things that you feel like you should be moving forward on quickly, or that should be really successful, or that you should be able to accomplish with like no effort at all, either like isn't working out, or it's screwing up, or it seems more difficult than it needs to be. And I kind of feel like in a frantic energy, it might be throwing you off your game in terms of your mindset and your emotions. And you might actually be internalizing that as a sign that you're not capable, and then telling yourself stories about your abilities, which is further impacting you. So I think it's important to recognize that anytime that you hit a roadblock or things aren't working out as you expect, it's not like a personal attack that you should internalize and take to be reflective of your your worth, right? So it's kind of like, it's almost like a really subtle form of self-sabotage, believing and getting wrapped up in those frantic thoughts that kind of throw you off balance. And then as I was shuffling your cards to get them cleansed for the reading, the Lovers card also dropped out a couple of times. So there might be, like, a lot of times that will pertain to a romantic relationship. And it could just be like love in general, love within your relationships, self-love. So that could be a theme or a major area of focus for you this month. And then as I was kind of like writing down these impressions that I was getting, I felt like a sense of congestion clearing out of my head. And it kind of gave me the impression that as you kind of start to become aware of how you're being thrown off and how your focus is being taken away, like your power to create and to do things in the physical world is kind of being taken away or weakened by your thoughts and feelings. It's kind of like almost clearing out a bunch of junk and coming to a better sense of like clarity, I guess. So you may be having some kind of realizations if you are working through this this month. And so we will jump into your channeled messages. Your first one was open book, and that kind of was followed immediately by dropping facades. So I think it's just emphasizing being really open, being honest, even if that means kind of dropping your defenses, being vulnerable, being willing to share openly and honestly, but in a tactful way, right? Because sometimes we have to have difficult conversations where, you know, maybe we say things that people don't necessarily want to hear or that might impact them on an emotional level. But it's like, you know, we need to share, right? Because we can't come to a level of understanding with each other and then compromise or determine a solution moving forward if we don't know where each other stand. And so it's recognizing that there's a tactful and fair and respectful way to deliver that kind of information. And even if it's not something that would be potentially hurtful, it's, you know, not judging or filtering yourself, and allowing for there to be a safe, open space for communication where you don't have to put on a mask, you don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. And it's kind of like recognizing that getting to that level of depth and connection and authenticity in your interactions with other people is really what's going to establish a really firm and healthy foundation for partnership, for collaboration, for healing, and for growth. So if what you want is meaningful connections and to kind of like work toward a shared goal, then it's kind of like being an open book, being willing to talk about anything, and kind of just lay it all out on the table and work through it without trying to influence the conversation, influence the other person, or come off a certain way is going to be really, really beneficial. So yeah, it's just sharing openly in a manner that will help whatever situation that you're in. And recognizing that it takes courage and confidence to be able to do that, to kind of own your situation, to own your truth, and to openly share that with somebody else. And so as much as it might feel vulnerable and unsafe, it's a really like courageous thing to do. And, you know, there's the opportunity for you and for others to benefit greatly from taking that approach. Your next channeled message was foraging for something. So it's like, I don't know, foraging for resources maybe. So it's kind of the sense of like, you know, putting in the work, searching for something in particular. And so when I think of foraging, it's like if you're going foraging in the forest for food or something like that. So it's like you kind of have a general idea of where to look or maybe what you're looking for, but you don't necessarily know for sure if it's there. You don't know what you're going to find or how much of it or how long it's going to take. So there's definitely a sense of unknown. There's definitely a sense of like, yeah, I could go searching and put in all this work and it might not pan out or I might not get anything. But there's also the opportunity that you could end up finding a lot. So it's like, however that might connect to you, it could be, yeah, resources, something like that. And so I think it's like important to just kind of keep a positive attitude. But there's a sense of like, you know, being determined to to find whatever you need. And there's also like a little bit of a sense of adventure. So it might be something new, it might be a learning experience, and that might be part of the allure, but also the challenge. If whatever this is something unfamiliar and you're kind of stepping into new territory, looking for something that could potentially be beneficial for you. Your next channeled message was greatest achievement. And so the first thing that came to mind when greatest achievement came through is it's like, what is it, right? So I think it may be beneficial for you to take some time to reflect on your life thus far, on all of your achievements for sure, but to determine like, what would you consider to be your greatest achievement? Why is it your greatest achievement? You know, what did you have to do to get there? And what have you experienced since achieving that? How has it changed you, right? And you know, what kind of abundance, what kind of, you know, joy has come from it, right? So I think it's like, it's important to recognize your achievements and to have gratitude for the fact that, you know, you've been able to kind of get there, but also to recognize that, you know, you're worthy of that achievement. Like that would not have come into being if you did not pursue it or take action or put effort in, or even like effort to sustain it. So it's recognizing that you're worthy of not only recognizing your achievements, but enjoying and celebrating them and yourself and the work that you've done to get there. And it's like sometimes just connecting with that and that gratitude and realizing our strength and our ability is what we need to kind of rebuild ourselves so that we can continue focusing on our next goal, or maybe even connect with the belief that we're able to manifest whatever it is that we desire or we're trying to work toward, because it's like you've done it before, right? All of the achievements that have come into being, like those are things that you've manifested, intentions that you set, effort that you've put in, and something that you've seen to completion. And so you already have the ability. So recognizing the ways that you've succeeded and reminding yourself of your strength and your ability can be a really, really good way to kind of connect with motivation to get to that next step, or to continue along the path of moving toward that next manifestation, even if it seems like it's kind of far off or you're doubting your ability to get there. Yeah, and I think it's also like part of gratitude, right? Is like honoring that achievement and connecting with it and being grateful for whatever that is, to put you in a state of mind where you're open to receiving more, and to kind of get you in that energy. Your next channeled message was momentary weakness. And so this could be like temptation. Temptation can come in any form. So whatever you consider to be maybe like a vice for you, maybe something that you struggle with, something that you struggle to say no to, something that you struggle to do, even though you know it's good for you, something that you struggle not to do, even though you know it's not good for you. And it's recognizing that whether you act on that or not, even sometimes just experiencing the temptation and resisting it can make us feel badly about ourselves. It can make us feel weak, and we can tend to judge ourselves. And so it's recognizing that, you know, having moments of weakness is just it's a human struggle, right? And I think that it's important to kind of break down the struggle and recognize that that's an experience and not let it define you. You know, so just because you've had a moment of weakness in the past, or just because you're maybe tempted to give in during moments of weakness, you know, it doesn't mean that you're not a valuable person. It doesn't mean that you don't have strong character. It just means that you're human and you're trying to work through, you know, your own growth and development, and potentially even healing. And so I think what's important is, it's like, even if it's just a moment of temptation and you're like, wow, I know better than this, why am I even tempted? It's recognizing that the moment that you start to think about that and judge yourself for it, instead of encouraging yourself to simply move beyond it and do better, then you kind of attach yourself to it. You hold on to it and you make it real, and you use that moment of struggle to define yourself, rather than recognizing that it's just something to fortify you, right? And so I would say, like, don't live in that energy. Don't hold on to it. Don't judge yourself for it. Obviously, you don't want to be going and making like bad, unhealthy decisions and just, you know, avoiding the consequences. That's not the point of this, but it's recognizing that those temptations, those weaknesses exist to help you become more aware of your areas for growth. And if you were not aware, if you were not tempted, you wouldn't know where you've still got, work to focus on. So it's not about your value or your worth. It's just about opportunities for you to get to know yourself more deeply and to connect with yourself more deeply and to be empowered to continue, doing better for yourself and by yourself. And then finally, your last message that came through was gratitude. And the thing that came up, so that kind of connects to that greatest achievement thing that I was mentioning. But the quote that came up immediately when I thought of gratitude is how they say, I don't know who said this originally, but that a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. And so, especially if you're finding yourself in a low place, or maybe you're uninspired, maybe you're in need of a miracle or some kind of positivity, or something, like if there's something that you feel that you're missing in terms of happiness or satisfaction or resources or whatever, it's recognizing that focusing on the lack of that and all of the kind of less desirable things that lack inspires, that actually isn't helping you. It's not encouraging you, it's not motivating you, it's not strengthening you, and it's certainly not helping your mental or emotional state, which means that when your energy is focused on lack and the things that are not working out, that's what's inspiring you, and it's really hard to create anything other than lack and dissatisfaction when that's the place that you're residing in energetically. So it's like just the practice of gratitude, a gratitude journal, focusing on the things that you're grateful for, allowing yourself to connect to and appreciate and enjoy the things that you're grateful for, the abundance, the good things that you've got in your life. The more that you can cultivate that gratitude authentically and meaningfully, it's like that is an investment in yourself and your health and your happiness. And when you're in that space, that's how you're showing up in the world. That's informing your actions, and that is woven into everything you do, and you're more likely to connect with more wonderful things to be grateful for, right? So a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. So it starts with you. If you find yourself to be lacking in some way, then it's like starting with gratitude and maybe having a daily gratitude practice could be a really beneficial kind of starting point for you, at least. So we'll get into your cards. So your oracle card for this month is All That Glitters. And I actually really love this card. I especially love this card for you. Let's see if I can get this to stand up a little bit better. I especially love this card for you because this really does speak to, the material world and abundance and the most obvious and heavily societally valued forms of abundance. And that's kind of, your realm as an earth sign too, right? Like earth signs tend to long for, stability, material, financial stability, abundance, to live a happy and comfortable life. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this kind of speaks to, it can speak to excess when it comes to pursuing material items or wealth or status or, whatever it is that we feel is going to make us happy or, get us, attention or establish us as important or worthy or attractive. But it can also deal with the way that we dishonor ourselves and others by focusing on potentially more superficial and materialistic displays of like impressive displays rather than like looking to the heart of the matter or the person. And so this is really encouraging you to recognize how you are influenced by image. So your own image, how you present yourself, how other people view you, what they think about you, the goals that you set in terms of material abundance, and what that means for how people are going to view you and connect with you, and then how you judge other people and how you connect with other people based on, like, you know, how much money they have, where they live, what their house looks like, what kind of car they drive, how white their teeth are, how perfect their hair is, how expensive their clothes are, you know, that kind of stuff. And so obviously the saying is that all that glitters is not gold. And so this can also be a warning that to follow the things that seem really enticing can sometimes lead you down the path of looking for fool's gold, right? So it's not necessarily something that's going to be valuable, not necessarily something that's going to make you wealthy or attractive or give you the satisfaction that you are expecting or looking for from it. And so it's kind of like you play yourself for a fool sometimes by chasing after things that seem shiny and fancy and expensive, and really they turn out not to be. And so it's recognizing that there's a deeper level of substance and meaning, you know, beyond just the superficial, shiny, gold, impressive things. And recognizing that it's our job to kind of delve beneath that surface. And especially if you are a little bit more connected on a deeper level, right? And you're not totally consumed by appearances and those superficial items, it's like chasing after that sometimes takes you further away from substance on like an emotional, mental, you know, connection-based level. And so this is kind of a warning. Whatever ways that you are attracted to that material abundance, anything that might be expensive, anything that might be attached to status, that your ego may be driven to covet. And it's recognizing, like, why is that? What is that it means to you? What is it that you're hoping to gain? What is it that you're hoping that others are going to think about you? And how is that ultimately going to serve your greater good? And so this is also talking about the fact that, like, sometimes, even in terms of people, sometimes we can be drawn to people because it's like, oh, they're really attractive and they're really, really well dressed and they've got a great job and they, you know, make a lot of money and they drive a nice car. And it's like, on the surface, they're shiny and glittery, but that does not necessarily mean that they are, you know, just as radiant on the inside. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person. It doesn't mean that they're compatible. It doesn't mean that they have, you know, shared morals or values, right? And so it can be tempting to chase after something that looks really shiny and promising, but you kind of have to be willing to look under the surface and see, like, who that person really is and what's going on underneath. And this can be the same. It doesn't have to be just people. It can be jobs, right? Like a job that looks like it comes with a lot of status and a lot of money for a really big, well-known corporation, and it could kind of set you up for success. But it's like, you know, do you know who's working there, who you're working with? Do you know what the culture is like? Do you know what that company stands for, right? So it's kind of like being willing to look beneath the surface. And it's also talking about how we can underestimate really, really wonderful, beautiful opportunities and people because they're not as glittery, right? Because they don't keep up with this image of glamour. And so it's our job to kind of not write people or situations or things off just because it doesn't glitter like gold. It doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't look attractive. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. And it doesn't mean that at its core, it isn't an attractive opportunity. And so obviously the relation to this is going to be different for each and every one of you. But the warning that comes along with this card is that if there's something in particular that you are really, really drawn to, or you're really particularly obsessed with, especially if it has to do with like status or power or money or any of the ways that you can kind of present your wealth and your abundance and your attractiveness to the people around you. It's just being really careful about what you're chasing after and how much time and energy you're investing, because it could very well be fool's gold, right? It could take you further away from what you're actually trying to achieve. And it's also recognizing that people who are living those flashy lifestyles or that seem to have everything that you want, while on the surface it might seem that their entire life glitters like gold, you don't know what's going on under the surface, right? You don't know how legitimate that is. You don't know if it's just a facade, like they might be spending all of their money to maintain an image. You don't know if they're happy and satisfied with all that they have. They could be living a life of legitimate abundance and feel really like impoverished emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, or in their relationships. So it's kind of talking about the masks that we wear and that other people wear, and how a lot of times the treasure is not what's on the surface, but it's what's inside. And sometimes we get carried away in the material sense, and we overvalue the material, and we undervalue the more meaningful aspects of connection in our existence. And so it's like whenever you're tempted to draw comparisons between yourself and others and people that you feel like are doing better or who have more or who are more successful or happier, it's like try to resist falling into jealousy and comparison, because chances are, even if you were them living their life, that form of like superficiality or that material stuff isn't necessarily in alignment with the type of abundance and satisfaction that you are looking for, right? So it's kind of like having those things, having that money, having that job is not necessarily going to make you feel fulfilled in the ways that you want to, because that's a very personal thing for you. And we cannot equate the most basic superficial material components of life with the more deep and meaningful aspects of life and our connections and our experiences that give us a more meaningful experience, right? Because that can't be quantified in the same way, but it can't be manufactured, right? So it's basically saying like something that you're contemplating, something that you're trying to chase after, there may be a thin veneer that sparkles and that seems promising, but under the surface it may not actually be what it seems or promise what it is that you're hoping for. So this is definitely like getting in touch with your heart, leading by your heart, being willing to go under the surface and see, is something really all that it seems? Is it better than it seems? Is it not as good as it seems? And the glittery facade just kind of draws you in under false pretenses. So yeah, I think there could be a lot of using your discernment. Okay, so we'll get you some cards. I'm trying to pull less cards this month in an attempt to make the readings a little bit shorter, because I've been hoping that if I make the readings a little bit shorter, then I might be able to do a mid-month check-in, because I think that would be kind of fun instead of just doing at the beginning of the month solely. But it seems like even pulling less cards, I still talk for a long time, and there's like a baseline number of messages or whatever that needs to come through. So we'll see. Okay, so we'll get you one more card. Your first card is the 10 of Cups. Your second card is the Knight of Cups. And at the bottom, oh my gosh, at the bottom of the deck, we have the 9 of Cups. And so it's real. I'm going to get clarifiers, but I just want to say before I lose this thought or this impression that it's really interesting that this is all cups, because this all has to do with your emotions, your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment, your emotional abundance. It has to do on a spiritual level with your intuition, your subconscious and how that impacts your emotions. And this has to do with love, like love and relationships, family, like romantic love. So that is like kind of the main focus. And so whatever it is that you are contemplating or that you're hoping for or that you're wanting to pursue, it may very well have to do with love, family, relationships, that kind of thing. Okay, so the 10 of Cups, I just dropped. 10 of Cups is clarified by the 7 of Pentacles. And we'll clarify this Knight of Cups here. Knight of Cups is clarified by the Nine of Wands, and at the bottom of the deck we have the Seven of Cups. Holy jeez. Okay, so I just want to say we've got 7 here, 7 here. This is card number 16, which equates to 7. So you've got 3 sevens, and 7 is a card of instability, change, and growth, but it's also associated with a more spiritual energy, like, you know, connecting to your intuition, your inner wisdom, you know, kind of forging your own path and finding a way to kind of live life in a way that makes sense to you, that's authentic to you, but having to kind of figure that out. So it can be in a bit of an unknown or unfamiliar space as you're trying to figure out how to navigate for yourself. You've also got 2 9s and then a 10. So you could be kind of, maybe you're repeating cycles or stuck in a repetitive cycle, or you might be coming to the end of a particular cycle or learning experience where you're trying to kind of solidify a certain life lesson, and really just kind of like level up so that you can have that skill or that knowledge or that experience to help you kind of move on to the next challenge or to kind of to do better, right? And so I think this is really interesting because with all that glitters being so focused on the things that grab our attention, that seem enticing and alluring, that tempt us because they kind of promise happiness and abundance and status, but they don't necessarily offer that up, because we still have to kind of connect on a deeper level, and the material is never going to solely be enough for that to be influenced by this, because the 10 of Cups, like I said, Cups energy is all about emotions, intuition, and love, right? Love for yourself, love for others, romantic relationships and family, and very much with these 2 cards here. So with the 9 of Cups and the 7 of Cups at the bottom of the deck, the 9 of Cups is the wish card, right? So this is like one of the most promising cards in the deck, because it's kind of like, it's the promise of pending manifestation. Like, if you can dream it, you can do it. And so it's kind of like, if you have the opportunity to manifest the life of your dreams, it's really difficult to do that and to take action toward bringing that into your reality if you don't know what that looks like. So the 9 of Cups is saying, like, you are in a position to begin manifesting a life that's going to be full of love and joy and happiness and connection and emotional fulfillment, right? But in order to do that, you have to know what you value on that level in terms of love, in terms of emotional connection. And you have to connect to and experience that love and happiness before you've actually got your end result, because it has to be something that you're already living and experiencing and that you're weaving into your daily life, because experiencing that love and happiness now and believing that that is available to you, it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of makes you a magnet for more of that. And for the 9 of Cups to come up with the 7 of Cups, the 7 of Cups is having like a lot of opportunities or a lot of choices. So it's like there could very well be a lot of different opportunities for happiness, for love, for emotional joy, connection, available to you. And the trouble with the 7 of Cups is that there's oftentimes so many options that it's like we can't possibly pursue all of them. And even if we were to try to take action or move in multiple directions at once, that's really just degrading our energy and our focus and our ability to manifest, because we're not kind of sure of exactly where we're headed, right? And the more things that you have your energy spread amongst, the slower you're going to move, and the less traction you have. So this is basically saying the 7 of Cups is difficult because you need to make a decision. Like, you need to make a decision of like, what cup of opportunity for love and happiness are you going to choose, right? Because it's like there's so many on offer here. And it's recognizing that when you connect to yourself and your heart and you get into the space of love and focus on like what's most important to you, then you can't make the wrong decision. But if you try to overanalyze, or if you fall into temptation, or you kind of fall out of alignment with like your highest self, then it can be really easy to make a decision that's not wrong, but maybe not maybe not the one that you're hoping for. Either way, whatever decision that you make, you'll commit to it. You will have the experience that you're meant to, and you'll have the opportunity to learn and grow in whatever way is going to be most beneficial for you. But the Seven of Cups, because it requires us to make a decision, especially about our hopes and dreams and this like love and abundance that we want to connect with, we can feel avoidant of that. And so instead we kind of get caught up in daydreams, right? And we avoid making a decision and we avoid taking action because we don't want to have to commit to just one thing, or the thing that we really want seems so unrealistic that we feel like it would never happen. And that doubt just keeps us dreaming about this future that we would love to create, but we don't believe it's possible, so we never do anything about it. And then our energy is just perpetually stuck in this daydreamy state where we're just leaking that energy. We're not able to apply it and use it in a practical way. And it's like, that's what you're here to do. Like, you know, as an earth sign, you are meant to impact your physical environment. You're meant to take action or to build or to create or to, you know, manifest. And so all of that energy and focus that you have, it's like making a decision is what will allow you, like making a decision on what you're trying to do is what will allow you to make it happen. But you have to have that belief and that confidence that not only is it possible, but that you deserve it. So there could be like trying to figure out what this happily ever after looks like, because your block, funnily enough, this is the energy that's kind of influencing where you're at. And your block is showing up as the 10 of Cups, which is the happily ever after card. So it's like, this wish has been fulfilled. And in this case, it's like this, you know, happy couple, happy, healthy marriage, family, sharing your life in harmony with other people, having deep emotional connections, experiencing love and joy and fulfillment. And it's like having a level of like depth of connection with other individuals, but also with yourself. So being connected to and aware of your emotions, allowing yourself to connect with joy, and also moving through life in a manner that's intuitive. So the manner that this comes up as a block would be potentially different for each and every one of you. So it could be that the block from this happily ever after is not having clarity on what that is, on what you're trying to create or what you want to experience. It could be that the block is believing that it can't happen, or having fear that it won't happen, or worrying that even if you were to get there, it wouldn't be sustainable or you would mess it up. So there could be a fear of like self-sabotage. There could be a fear of, you know, not being able to manage it, or just thinking that it's completely unrealistic. It could be a fear that you're not worthy of having your dreams fulfilled. But, you know, either way, right? Like, it's like whatever you believe is true. So there could be some soul searching that needs to be done, that it's like, if you have the opportunity to live the life of your dreams, why wouldn't you want to try to do that? Why wouldn't you want to connect with it now? Right? So there's some kind of disconnect between this dream of happily ever after and like your ability to make that manifest. And perhaps with all that glitters, and because there's treasure here and treasure here, right? So perhaps the struggle is that this happily ever after may be influenced by fool's gold, or more material, shiny, glittery things that, you know, are of less substance and not necessarily going to give you the true, because this is about true emotional satisfaction and depth of connection and joy, right? And so it's like, perhaps being focused on the material or the glittery things is taking you away from what's really going to be most satisfying. And if you are experiencing blocks and having that happily ever manifest, then perhaps it could be too much of a focus on the material or the status and not enough on the emotional depth of connection. Because with the Seven of Pentacles here, the Seven of Pentacles is all about, you know, being able to recognize and reap the rewards of your work, right? So it's kind of like, if you think about your manifestation as a garden. So if you've planted the seeds, tended to the soil to prepare it, planted the seeds, tended to the garden, you know, watering regularly, weeding the garden, all this stuff. And it's like, it takes a lot of time and effort to see the things that you want to create in the physical world manifest, right? And then when it does, it puts you in a position of being able to recognize not only your hard work, but to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And it's also important, like, not to covet whatever it is that you're able to create, and not to hold on to it tightly or to kind of attach your ego to it, but to be willing to express gratitude for the fact that you've been able to create that, and to be willing to share that with other people. So with the Seven of Pentacles, this is about recognizing our abundance, being grateful for our abundance, appreciating it for ourselves, but also being willing to share, right? And sharing with other people is, money is, I actually just read something this morning that says that money is just, it's, and material possessions, it's just kind of like another resource, another energetic resource. And so if we share that with other people in the same way that we would share our time or our love or our attention or our support, if we look at it that way instead of the strictly financial resource that we need for ourselves, then we're much more open to kind of like sharing the wealth with other people. And that opens the door for more abundance to come back to us, right? Because if you're clinging to it and saving it all for yourself, and I'm not saying about like putting yourself in a bad situation, because it's like you could be saving for this future, but it's recognizing that in saving for this future and trying to get that stability for yourself, it's like you can't hold on to it so tightly that you're not willing to share with anyone else, because that kind of just makes you a miser, and it shuts you off from connecting to people and offering your resources, and it shuts them off from offering theirs back to you. And because we all kind of are meant to work together instead of just being solely independent, it's interrupting the natural flow of relationships and the expression of love, of giving and receiving love. Energy, money, time, those are all, it's like love languages, right? So there's something to do with material abundance, either the cultivation of it, the enjoyment of it, or the sharing of it, that could be interfering with this happily ever after, or your ideas about a happily ever after. I'm not sure how that might make sense to you, but that is showing up as your challenge. And in order to overcome this challenge or work through this energy and to kind of connect with something that might be more beneficial to you, you're being advised to kind of step into this Knight of Cups energy, which the Knight of Cups, so this could very well have to do with a romantic relationship. It doesn't have to, but that is the connection that's coming through the strongest here, especially with the 10 of Cups being kind of like a happily ever after family, having a happy family life, having a happy relationship. So of course it could be in friendships, it could just be, in love, self-love, your relationship to yourself. But the Knight of Cups is the most, loving, sentimental, expressive, and romantic card in the deck. So it's like an offer of love, and being willing to kind of put the other stuff aside, right? Like put the overactive mind aside, put materialism and financial stability and goals and status and all that aside. And it's being willing to just connect on a really sincere and loving energy, a sincere and loving level, right? So opening the door to emotional expression, opening the door to connection on an intuitive level, because like I said, Cups has a lot to do with intuition, has a lot to do with our subconscious thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and how that impacts, how we, how our emotions guide our life. So this is jumping into it, so it might be like a romantic gesture. It might be sharing kind and loving sentiments, like opening the door for a deeper level of love and connection. And if it's not related to a relationship specifically, this could be even like extending that love and compassion to yourself, wooing yourself, taking yourself out on dates, being that ideal significant other for yourself and treating yourself with that love, so that your cup is full and you are whole, and, you can show up in all of your relationships willing to kind of connect on an equal level. So there's a reprioritization almost of like romance. And it's like you're the one taking the lead, right? Like you're the Prince Charming, you know, making your declaration of love. There's like a little romantic picnic here. He's got flowers. Like it's a very humble and sincere energy. And there's also a sense of vulnerability because there could be the opportunity for rejection, but this person is not held back by the chance of rejection, because they know that that love and that connection and that opportunity for this like wish fulfillment is important enough to them that they can't wait on it, right? So it needs to be a priority. And for it to come up with the Nine of Wands, the Nine of Wands can be almost a guarded defensive card, right? And it's like it's like having been through a lot, and you know, not necessarily feeling safe. Like, so it's kind of being tired and worn out and needing to rest, but also being wary of resting because it leaves you vulnerable and you never know. Like somebody may be trying to attack you, right? So it's kind of like having your defenses up a little bit, having a little bit of a wall. So it could be you needing to let this wall down and allow yourself to kind of reignite and connect with that spark, like your reason for moving along this path to begin with. Or it could be that people around you are kind of guarded or defensive, and it's like needing to kind of soften your approach, soften the relationship, get back to a more loving energy in order to kind of help this cycle come to completion, right? Because the Nine of Wands, you're almost finished this kind of long journey. And the idea is to kind of close out that cycle, learn that lesson, and reconnect with a new opportunity, a new spark of passion and inspiration and creativity and excitement, right? And so it's kind of like honoring where you are in your relationships or in your life, and however that connects to your happily ever after and your desire for this abundance. So yeah, this is really connecting to the heart of the matter. Because with the Nine of Wands here, what kind of comes to mind is there may be a need to recognize that some things have happened that have created a little bit of a wall, or a need to guard yourself, or a need for someone to guard themselves to you. And it's like, perhaps it's too much focus on the material. Perhaps it's too much focused on, you know, all that glitters and status and money and all of the things that promise to make us feel, you know, happy. And so it's like kind of needing to disconnect from that and reconnect to the heart of the matter, what really, really is most valuable in terms of like love and connection. So I think that's really promising. And I think that the whole point, right, this Knight of Cups being on this journey to declare love and to reconnect and to have an opportunity for a really deep and loving, meaningful connection, relationship, whether romantic or not, that could help you refocus, right? Because it's only by getting into this loving energy that we can really experience that in our day-to-day life. And it's like, if what you're wanting is this happily ever after 10 of Cups, you have to be willing to make room for that in your day-to-day life and in your relationship, especially if it's related to a happily ever after with a family, right? So it's like, you can't get that emotional fulfillment and that depth of emotional connection if you're not prioritizing and experiencing it on a day-to-day basis. And like, so gratitude may be part of that, right? But I can see how this would help you kind of get clarity on how to make this happen, because it could just be your disconnection from your emotions and from love and happiness and connection and relationships that's keeping you, that's blocking you from this kind of end goal. So your affirmations: I can release ancient pain by simply feeling it. So again, Cups has a lot to do with acknowledging our emotions and being willing to experience them, being willing to let them flow, and to see what they have to tell us about our situations, potentially like our values, our areas for healing. And so there may be some feelings that you just kind of need that have been repressed. It might be even like generational trauma and things like that you're holding tightly to or maybe suppressing. And it's just about letting it flow through you and allowing yourself to release it instead of creating an identity out of it. And the more that you release those emotions that maybe are painful or unhelpful, the more room that you have to connect with love and happiness and all of the beautiful emotions and the opportunity for emotional connection in your relationships, which is what makes things meaningful, right? And then I pray before I pay. And so for me, this kind of connects to gratitude. So it's being aware of all the things you have, recognizing the abundance that you have in any and all forms, which is not just material and superficial. And so it's kind of like taking stock of all of your blessings and being willing to recognize that you're worthy of those and that you can connect with more. But it's really difficult to connect with more or to be in a position to enjoy more if you're not actively grateful for and enjoying the blessings that you already have. So it's like, to recognize what you have before you put yourself, potentially in a position to lose it, or, it's like you don't know what you have till it's gone. It's like it might not be within your control, but it would be a shame to be in a position where something is taken from you and it's only once it's gone that you realize how valuable it was, or how much of an opportunity for happiness or fulfillment there was there. And then this can also be more literal, being intentional about the way that you pay. So it could be any type of resource, your time, your energy, your money, being aware of how important that resource is to you and being very intentional about how you spend that, so that it is empowering and connecting you with an abundance mindset rather than a lack mindset, like the Seven of Pentacles here. That when you're sharing with other people, that is you sharing abundance, which in turn should make you grateful for your abundance. It's an expression of gratitude. Whereas even if you're giving to people, if you are coming from a place of lack or not wanting to let go of those resources, then you're kind of creating more lack. And so your final oracle is the Golden Children, which says inner child, tenderness, innocence, rare gifts. So this is the Starseed Oracle, and I've kind of been warning everyone that it's a little bit out there spiritually. So like it may not resonate with you, but I like getting a different point of view. And, there usually is, even with the most kind of esoteric concepts, there usually is something really practical and grounded that can be taken away from it. So it's all about how it resonates for you. So for the Golden Children, it says, Golden Children, children of the sun, are highly advanced, extremely intelligent souls who are incarnating increasingly on the planet Earth. They have little or no personal karma and possess incredible gifts and intuitive abilities. Golden children are born with a very clear mission. Many remember it from a young age and begin answering and sharing it early in life. Due to their unique intelligence, they may find themselves easily bored at school. Most have never incarnated on Earth before, and so they're not supported in the right ways. They struggle with the physical life here. They're often referred to as the new humans. If you pull this card, it may be a sign that you're being called to mother, father, or nurture a child. You may be called to tend to your own inner child, a creative idea or project, or a new beginning. To treat yourself or the new beginning with sweet, tender love. To nurture and nourish it. To give it every chance to grow and reach adulthood. To encourage it. To water it. To see the world through the innocence of a child. To see yourself and all others as innocent children. To remember that deep down everyone is trying their best, and if they're treated with a tender heart, they'll not harden as they journey through this great adventure called life. And then there's a soul inquiry that says, how can you treat yourself or others more tenderly? So yeah, this is kind of interesting because it's funny, golden children, all the glitters. There's definitely a theme here of gold. So yes, there may be connection to a child, and that doesn't surprise me because we've got children here with this happily ever after card. So it could be a connection to your child, to your inner child. It could be that issues with perhaps materialism or being focused on on material and less on emotional. Could be something that kind of dates back to your childhood, something that you learned, or a childhood wound. And so perhaps you're not nurturing yourself in the way that allows you to recognize and build upon your strengths and use those in a capacity to manifest this life of your dreams. And so you're kind of getting caught up in the more like obvious, superficial aspects of life that are so constantly like flaunted to us as things that we should desire. So there may need to be some soul searching to get in touch with yourself, who you really are, and what healing needs to be done, and not only to treat yourself more tenderly and more kindly and in a more nurturing fashion, but the other people around you, because, you know, to some degree we're all working on childhood wounds and trying to embrace and connect with our inner child, because that really does afford a more authentic and untainted perception of life outside of this kind of glittery material facade that so many of us may be enticed to like fall into, or may be kind of romanced by. So it's a really interesting reading for you, Taurus. I'm going to leave that here. I hope this was helpful to you. If you did enjoy this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube. You can also leave me a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you think might be interested in or benefit from my readings, you can share my videos with them. And make sure you head to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot and not only subscribe to the channel, but sign up for notifications, and that will keep you up to date on new videos, readings as they're posted. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. I hope this month is good to you. I'm very much excited to see how next month will pan out for you. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.